What's up, everybody? Welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. We're live on the YouTubes. In a few minutes, we're also going to transition to be live on the Golazo Network. We're actually not live on the Golazo Network. It's going to be up a little bit later, but we're live here with you. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Tony Miola. And we're still in our feelings about our loss to Canada, 2-1 a couple days ago. We're also going to preview the New Zealand game. And Chuck is fired up. Chuck, I feel like we should save your energy for once we're on the Golazo Network. Yeah. But good to see you because you weren't part of the reaction show.
Well, I was in spirit because you could see me. I was in the comments.
And we didn't know if it was you or not.
There's a lot of burner accounts. Of course it's me. Everybody in the chat knows it's me too. How do you guys not know it's me?
I mean, I know when it's your brother in the chat, but I don't know if it's, it's you. Yeah, I know. I almost want to save all your fury for the show, so maybe we do that. Tones, how are you feeling a couple days later? I mean, you still kind of I'm still a little bitter about how things were going.
I think I'm more shocked because going into the game, I wasn't expecting anything differently from a tactical standpoint. Mikey Varas is a disciple of Greg Berhalter. What I am shocked about is just the intensity that seemed to be lacking, especially in that first half. Look, there's games where you play poorly. We've all seen teams, and our teams we support on the weekends, we yell and scream about they play poorly, some play good, and you're going to have those games. But my gosh, like the one thing that I think is always a non-negotiable is the intensity and the fight and the willingness. And it seemed like we were void of ideas, which is probably to be expected with this group right now. But I thought we would fight a little bit. I thought at a minimum, if you didn't know what Canada was going to do on the day, you knew that they were going to fight, and you knew that they were going to kick you, and you knew that they were going to grab you and do all of those things. And we didn't match that part at all for 90 minutes for me. So that's, I think, that now that I sat back and we're not reacting 2 minutes after the final whistle, that's probably the thing that stings the most for me.
And commitment is a choice, right? It's not talent. It's you're making a decision. I'm ready to fight, and I'm going to do something about it. All right, we are going to now pivot over to the Golazo Network. Hit like and subscribe on the YouTubes, and we'll be right back with you right after this. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Tony Miola. And yes, we are going to remain in our feelings about the U.S.'s big 2-1 loss to Canada. The first time we've lost to Canada on American soil in 67 years. That was right around the time I was born, Chuck. I'm going to beat you to that joke, okay? Yes, I know that I am old, and of course, we're going to preview the New Zealand game, but we got to look back before we look forward. Chuck, you were part of our reaction show, and now you have the platform right now. What were your feelings about the U.S.'s performance in that game, or shall I say, the lack thereof in terms of a performance for the U.S.?
Well, I've also had some time to calm down. And
I watched. Have you calmed down? Have you?
No, I haven't. But I've had some time to kind of control my thoughts. So in watching the live reaction show, I thought you guys were a little easy on the ratings. But where do you focus most of your frustration, right? And I look from the top down because it's not just the players. Yeah, the players were poor. They were terrible. And there's the first 45 minutes, you're thinking you guys can't even complete passes. The ideas, where's the excitement about a potential on the horizon, at least Mauricio Pochettino hiring? I want to play and show him I'm the guy to go. I want to play in a World Cup on home soil. Where's that excitement? There was none. And then besides the player part, right? We're talking about a head coach in Mikey Varas, who is obviously well out of his depth to be coaching this group. Gives you nothing on top of that. So he comes out in the press conference and it's the mentality, it's on the players, and no one's. You didn't say that in the beginning.
Chuck, let me get to the quote, because Mikey Varas came out right after the game and he said this, and I want to make sure we don't skip any words, okay? Because It's pretty crazy. He calls out the U.S. men's national team players. He says, I eat that one, the results. And I think we were too static. The translation of the ideas weren't clear enough because we shouldn't be static, trying to accelerate.
That's your job as a coach. What do you mean the ideas weren't clear enough? You're taking over a national team as a interim manager. What are you trying to change? You've learned from the head coach that was just sacked. What are you changing? What mastermind are you that's going to come out so different? How about, guys, I'm not the coach. I'm not going to be the coach. Go out there and give 100%. You know why? It's not for me. It's for yourselves. It's for the country. You have a World Cup on home soil. Go out and show Mauricio Pochettino, who's going to be hired, or whoever's going to be hired, that you want to be a part of that. Play with some pride. You had a coach who you're playing against who's an American citizen who's now coaching Canada because he didn't get this job and he wanted this job. And now he's going out and saying you guys are hypocrites, that you didn't want him, that you needed Greg. And now that things didn't go well, you don't need Greg. You need a different type of coach. Well, go out and show him that he's wrong. Go out and show him that you're a better squad. He disrespected you. Show some attitude. Also, this is a Canada side that kicked your butt during World Cup qualifying. Then you had them taste a little bit of humble pie in the Nations League when you cleared them out 2-0 and it was easy peasy. But now look at it. Now who's got the last laugh? Go out and play with some damn pride. That was my point. So yes, it falls on the players' shoulders. The players were crap all the way through 90 minutes. Malik Tillman probably had his best game in a U.S. shirt, but what is that saying? Because he was really poor before that. And then Chris Loon had some good moments in the second half that you thought, oh, there's some potential there. But ultimately, and Schulte, I guess, he showed something, but he had one really good save. Otherwise, status quo. My thing is, show me something. Give them nothing, right? Play to your best of ability. Who cares about what ideas and tactics that he wants to throw in? A manager that's not going to be the coach, a manager that's not ready to be coaching at that level, and clearly by his antics after his comments, stop it. Just go out and play.
Go, Chuck.
We all play for coaches.
Go, Chuck.
Don't have the credibility that don't even make sense, but you go out there and you do your damn thing. We didn't see that. So, yes.
Okay.
Am I still feeling a little irritated by the whole situation? Yes.
Okay, two things. One, we didn't even finish the quote. That's the best part. And second, I want Mikey Varas in the chat at all times because nobody's been able to trigger Chuck like this, like Mikey Varas. Let's finish the quote, and then, Tones, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Now, the back half of the quote, which I think is almost maybe going to trigger you even more, Chuck, is that he said the mentality of the players, or he said on the other side, I guess he was saying, he was referencing himself in the first one. On the other side, mentalities of the players, sorry, they know it. They know we speak the truth to each other. I love these guys, but they know that mentality of fighting and to run, it's a sacrifice. It's a combination between me and them and all of us together. So Tones, I don't know if you can match that emotion of Chuck, not to say that you should, but because we need
that was a mic drop moment right there.
That was a mic drop.
Yeah.
But it does feel like this is I don't know if a coach can come out. It felt like he threw the players under the bus a little bit there. Not to say they didn't need to hear that.
Yes, he did. Like, it's not my fault. Yes, it is your fault.
I can't run.
Your job is to motivate. That's it. Because you're not coaching anything. You're not teaching them anything new. You're supposed to motivate them. He didn't do that either. So, let me throw in some wrinkles and play differently. You're not playing differently. You're sabotaging your damn team trying to play through press.
What was interesting was when we had Brian McBride with us in the preview show or before that, when we talked about Mikey Varas taking over, he had mentioned, well, Mikey's going to bring his own ideas to the team. And I remember going, that's a red flag. The last thing you want is an interim coach trying to bring ideas to a team when they're only just there to just make sure that ultimately the vibes are good, to your point, right? Everybody's making sure they're locked in the intangibles, because what are you going to really show them or implement?
The BJ Callahan effect. Just right.
BJ did it. BJ did a very good job.
Good vibes. Good. Hey, guys, I love y'all. Good vibes. Go out and have fun. Enjoy the game. Right. Play with the energy. Be yourselves. That's it. Don't put any little tweaks in there and do this and this, and I'm gonna change the system. You're not doing anything different. Stop.
I know. Yeah, they needed your speech. That's what I would have been expecting if I was in that dressing room. We're not changing anything. We are who we are. The next guy is going to change something. And I said to you guys, after the show. I said, I just couldn't believe that the intensity that we came out with was almost zero. Like, I would have thought that would have been the one thing that, as Charlie said, you're looking at a potential new coach coming in from next camp. I got to show him something, man. We got a World Cup at home. And that part wasn't there. And that, for me, is the most upsetting part. Again, I will always say teams play poorly on days. Sometimes ideas don't work. You get tactics wrong because the other team does something different. You don't adjust. All those things happen to every single team in the world. So we shouldn't think that it's not going to happen to us at some point. But my gosh, we've argued and we've said, and I hate when people say the one thing from the past we always had was fight and grit and this and that. And I'm like, no, we had good soccer players too, by the way.
Yes, we did. We
absolutely
did.
That added to the fight and the grit and the hunger to win and prove people wrong. And I think Canada is in that phase right now where they're like, we're tired of being the third or fourth team that everybody talks about. So they have that hunger and grit and fight and determination. And by the way, they had it under John Herdman too, right? And then it went sideways at the World Cup because there were just better soccer players than them. But now Jesse is taking it now and is running with that mentality. Hey, it's us against the world. I don't feel like we have an us against the world mentality in the U.S. team because we got guys playing at places that maybe are a little bit more glamorous than some of the other places guys played with before. And I've long said, I don't want to be, we don't need to have a German philosophy. Look, I've been U.S. soccer for a long time. I'm a lot older than you guys. We went from being the Brazilian Federation when they won Youth World Cups to the Portuguese Federation, to the French Federation, now the Dutch Federation and their philosophy. Why not be a better version of who we've been our entire life?
Well said, Big Tones. Well said. I think when I get into Mikey Varas and just what he should have done, he should have prepared for what Canada was going to do and then had a proper counter where everybody was on the same page. And that's where I think there was a failure of the coaching, not only in what you're saying about Chuck, right? Making sure everybody's just ready to go and chomping at the bit to make sure that there's some pride in wearing the shirt. And we're actually going to get to a Tim Ream quote here about that. But I just feel like we didn't have answers for what was coming, which is a bit of a surprise because we all knew what Canada was going to do. And yet I don't know if it was our ego, like, oh, we're good enough to play through this press.
Jimmy, can I add something?
Please.
So this is the thing, the misconception, I think, at times about the coach for the U.S. men's national team and really any coach. You have the tactics part. You have the I'm studying the opponent's part. This is how they play. These are their strengths. This is our strengths. Okay, be mindful of this, be mindful of that. But then there's the part that, okay, you talk about mentality. All these players have gotten to where they had to go, especially if you're playing in Europe, by their mentality. Mm-hmm. So mentality may not be the issue, right? When it's all said and done. It's not the true mentality. Maybe you could say it's a team mentality. But what is asked of the coach is to make sure that the energy and the mentality is right when you start the game with the whistle, right? The whistle blows. I have prepared my guys so that all week he talked about it. Oh, the training looked great. The mentality was great all week. I don't get, we were all competitive, but then the whistle blew. It's on the coach to make sure that guys are going, the mentality is right, that they understand the magnitude of every match. Now, if they don't, make those substitutions on the first half. If guys are not playing well, make changes.
Charlie would be a crazy-ass coach, by the way. But yes, Chuck, listen.
60-second minute.
I agree with you, but we talked about this in the reaction show.
Yep.
There are moments where players have to step up and be leaders, and we're lacking leaders, especially in the spine of the team.
Yes, I agree.
So there's a little bit of that too. Listen, I'm with you on where the Mikey Varas stuff is, but at some point there's a little truth in what he's saying as well, where
I'm not saying it's not. I haven't said one time that it's not on the players too. What I'm also saying is a big part of it though is the coach, right?
Yes.
Everyone knows it's an interim coach, but don't try and be somebody you're not, which is, to me,
okay.
He tried to be something he's not in this scenario.
Let's go to Tim Ream's quote then, because this was pretty telling. He said something similar after the Copa America, and Walker Zimmerman said something similar after the Olympics. So there's a theme that we're seeing here, and this is what Tim said, it's something that I think we need to get back. This is on the slipping standards, to really taking much more pride in wearing the jersey. And that's not to say that we aren't proud to wear the jersey, but I think there's a certain standard that we need to hold ourselves to, and we haven't been doing that, and that's on us as individuals, as players, and it has to come from within us. You can't coach intensity. Tony, thoughts on that quote from Tim Ream?
It's consistent with exactly what he said after Copa America. I mean, he basically said the same thing, copy and paste. And that's scary to me because when I look at this U.S. men's national team, and if you look at every sort of cycle that had good periods in it, that was an intangible. You couldn't get rid of the intensity. We were never that good. We were competent enough soccer players, but we were never good enough to just rely on the soccer part alone and the footballing acumen that players have. You had to have the fight and determination. And when you have a team that doesn't have world superstars, it's about a team, right? Which means all of the guys have to pull a little extra weight. We don't have a Lionel Messi that's going to bail you out like he did it in Mexico in the World Cup against Mexico with an incredible play. Like, we don't have those type of players. And I don't know that any of those players are walking through the door anytime soon. So when you look at this group, that's going to have to be something that is a staple for every minute that they're on the field. And that's what Canada has right now. They have that. They're not great soccer players. And I still think that if you look at our lineups, there'll be some guys in that Canadian side, Bombito's one of them, by the way, who would break into this lineup in a heartbeat. But there's not a ton of them, right? So you have to match the other stuff. And the U.S. didn't do it. And let's hope that's, once again, I feel like we've been saying this for a year, that's another learning lesson for this group.
I think what's interesting, Chuck, let's give some shine to our former co-host, Jesse Marsh. What Canada is demonstrating under his guidance is something that we're clamoring for from our team. The fight, the mentality, the desire to make plays, organized on both sides of the ball. Yes, it's not always pretty. And yes, Bombito has demonstrated he's going to be an up-and-comer and arguably one of the best young talents in all in CONCACAF. Alphonso Davies, probably the best player in CONCACAF. Jonathan David, obviously a proper number 9. So, but I don't want to kiss Jesse's butt too much. I'm just saying that he's got what we're looking for in spades. And now, obviously, his emotion to make sure that
Jimmy,
we're playing. Go ahead.
What Tony had brought it up earlier. This is not anything different than what John Herman did. Remember, they beat us 2-0 in Canada, and they tied us at home. This isn't anything different. He hasn't changed. He hasn't changed anything. He hasn't changed anything except for, he brought a Schaffelberg into the equation, and you could argue that Jesse's made the defense for Canada much better in Bombito and Cornelius. That is a good partnership, and that's better than what they had in the previous cycle. They didn't have good defenders, but they made the most of it with Alistair Johnson, Kamal Miller, and Stephen Vittoria, who was well past it, but he blended in well with his experience. I think Jesse gave them a good base in terms of defensive baseline. But ultimately, he's not changing anything. Like for me, he still hasn't gotten the most out of Alphonso Davies in what I've seen so far throughout his time as the manager for Canada. But what he has done is gotten them to believe in his system, in his methodology of high pressing, the Red Bull philosophy, giving 100% maximum capacity in all your runs and getting them to sprint more and getting them to work hard and getting them to come together. And for him, that's the secret to every game, is having that type of mentality of we're going to outrun everybody. And to a point that gets you so far. Right. And that was my whole thing in terms of the U.S. men's national team. We've been doing that forever, for as long as I remember the national team. We needed something more than that. That plus the philosophy and the different types of possession and playing styles and different types of players, instead of the north-south counter.
Did we lose Chuck?
Style.
He's back.
Ultimately,
no, the camera can't keep up with your emotion right now. It's
all right.
Your emotion's going too fast for the camera.
Yeah, my emotion's crazy right now. So my bad.
What I find interesting though, but yeah, let's say this though. I think Jesse's very good at the optics, right? But to your point about what he's doing. Yeah, okay, it's not much different than Herdman, but there's a sense of belief. And he's only won, what, 2 games? He beat Venezuela in penalties in the Copa America, right, to move into the semifinal. So if you want to call that a draw, he's won 2 games out of, what, 8 or 9 games. But there's such a great energy around them. He's won 2 out of 8 or 9 games. That's crazy. And yet you look at them and you go, I have a good idea of how they're going to play. They are all bought in. And that felt refreshing. To what Tony said about somebody calling in, about having – Tones, you had somebody that you'd said that called in and or something like that. No? Sorry. Anyway, I had just – there's just this –
Yeah, Tones had someone call in.
Well, yeah, of course. Tones always has something like that. I'm all over the place. I'm lost.
You hit the nail on the head, though. You said it. You had an idea, right, of what they were trying to do, and that's really all you can do. I mean, we sit and analyze games every day, right? What's the most frustrating part when you come out of a game? I call games every week, and the most frustrating part is when you have no idea what the team is trying to do. Well, it's clear what Canada was trying to do. For me, in the first 5 minutes, they were pressuring the middle of the field. Right? The central part of the field. They wanted the ball played into central midfielders, and in our case, played into the central midfield really, really slow, and they were going to pressure you. And then when the ball turned over, they were going to attack. If you look and try and draw a map of where the U.S. or what the U.S. was trying to do in this game, you have no idea. I watched the game again. I tortured myself to watch the game one more time, and I still have no idea what Mikey Varas was trying to do. And the second half, did we play better in the second half? Yeah, but I said in the post-game show,
how could you not?
Is always different.
If the first half was a minus, how could you not play better, right?
Right. So when you look at this, I'm sitting thinking to myself, Mikey Varas was on the bench. Who else was there? Nico Estevez and whoever else was there. I'm like, if we can figure this out in 5 minutes, all you experts that have been studying this, like you didn't have a plan B for this. And that's frustrating to me. You just wanted to keep pumping the ball
from day one.
Yeah. You just want to keep pumping the ball into the middle of the field. Why? To see when it works, because that's how you mapped it out in your training session, because it was intense in the training session is what I heard. It's never as intense as as intense when you get to a game, man.
We got a break. What about throwing players out in positions when, Cade Cowell against Alphonso Davies 1v1? That's going to work out. Was that a great tactical substitution? He was
Chuck's still going.
He saw a ghost. He was like,
keep this going. Keep this going in the break, Chuck. We want more of it, especially on the other side of it. All right, we have to stop down just briefly, but when we come back, more of the good stuff like always. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want, your favorite average to good podcast. Hopefully we're skewing more towards the good than the average for this particular show. I really feel like Charlie's carrying us with his emotions right now. I'm Jimmy alongside Chuck and Big Tones. And let's talk about Mauricio Pochettino, because guess what? He still isn't our coach yet. Hasn't been announced. That could probably trigger us a whole different way. But it has been known per Doug McIntyre from Fox Sports, who said that Pochettino's backroom staff has been locked in. We got Jesus Perez and Miguel D'Agostino, assistant coaches, Tony Jimenez, the goalkeeper coach. They've been with him from the very beginning. We're talking when he first started coaching at Espanyol and all the way through his tenure. Every other stop, he has been with this staff. So this is a good sign that things are progressing, but yet we still have no announcement. And I guess the big thing, and Tones, I'm going to come to you first on this, because we talk about what's happening, whether Mikey Varas is in charge or not or whatever. Mauricio Pochettino is seeing this in real time. Probably, I don't know, he's not as hot as we are, because I don't think he has the track record of watching us for so many years now, but probably not pleased with that performance. What are the top 3 things that you think that Pochettino needs to fix straight away?
I'm gonna look on my what I sent this, but so I get this right. We almost have a head coach, and we almost have 4 assistant coaches. Yeah. We almost have 4. Okay. First thing is the mentality. He's got to get right for me. Mentality number 1, and I think I think. I hope that when a new manager like Pochettino walks in the dressing room, he doesn't have to talk about that, right? I'm going to guess he doesn't have to talk about that. Second thing is the back. I sent to Des the back three, and what I meant was he needs to get the center backs and the goalkeeper right. He needs to figure out, because we're in a really odd sort of position in those three areas of the field that I don't think we've been in for quite some time. I don't recall where we went into this many camps and we didn't know who our center backs were, and now we didn't know who our goalkeeper is going to be, right? And maybe one of you can remind me of a period of time where those three positions were not at least two of them sorted out. And then the third one is roster selection. Who fits what you're trying to do? Because if we're trying to continue to play at the highest level the way that Greg wanted to play, which is the way Mikey Varas really wanted to play in this game, then we don't have the right players in the roster. We don't, and I get there's some injuries, but every team has injuries, so I can't make any concessions for the guys that weren't here, because everybody goes through that. We don't have the right type of players, right? And we have a really good example right now in U.S. soccer, and that's the Columbus Crew, right? They hardly have a superstar in that team, right? You can make an argument for Cucho. I get it, right? You can make an argument. This is a guy that wasn't wanted in England.
That guy's really
good. This is a guy who couldn't make it in England, right? He came here and all of a sudden is on fire because they got a bunch of players that understand very few rules in that team of how to play, but it looks really, really intricate. They all understand it. They all buy into it, and it works out really, really well. So I'd rather have a team of guys that don't play at massive clubs, a whole roster that's not at massive clubs, but we're a much better team than what we're seeing right now.
So,
right?
Chuck, I agree
there's
with you.
A balance.
No, I agree with you. And I feel like Mauricio Pochettino can make a really important first impression, Chuck, right? And that will happen automatically because of his pedigree as a coach and what he's like. The guy, it's just they're going to feel different when he's there and he's talking to them. And I think that will elevate the mentality. That'll elevate that they want to prove to him that they should be on the team, which is what we are clamoring for, what we've been lacking, or it feels like that. I agree with you, Tony, that mentality is going to be one of those. I think that'll fall into place given what we've seen as a coach from Pochettino in his other times at the club level. Because, again, the national team's a little bit different, a little bit trickier because you're not around the guys every single day. Identity. I'd love to see some identity on both sides of the ball, really having clear ideas of how we want to play, somewhat recognizable. But also for me, and this is kind of maybe gets into the gray area a little bit, Chuck, and then I want to hear from you, is I want some in-game problem solvers. And I guess that falls into leadership too, where, hey, they're taking away plan A. Cool, we're ready and we're prepared for plan B. That's coaching, of course, but that's also having leaders on the field that can recognize.
Not necessarily.
I mean, I don't know if we're developing those types of like when Tyler Adams plays for us, it's noticeable in terms of a leadership standpoint that guy's on the field. That guy has presence and he's holding people accountable.
He's not changing the style of play. You know what I mean?
But he could be like, if we're stuck on one side, this is a very basic example. Can we switch it quickly, right? I mean, can we have somebody say, hey, that shit's not on anymore. We got to, in, back, and through, and we're off to the other side. I mean, we have to have guys that, and I'm not to say that we don't, but I don't know if that's breaking through or if or maybe two or three guys are thinking one thing, but then the other 7 or 8 are thinking something else. That needs to be clarified for me, where we're all like, okay, hey guys, plan A is not working. Let's move to plan B. And that type of communication is happening on the field, right? I mean, I know easier said than done, but that's just something I would be looking for in terms of the leadership from Pochettino that would trickle down into the rest of the team. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I was going to say, I look back to the best game that this group has ever played, and that would be World Cup game number 2 against England, where they outperformed England. And the wrinkle with Weston McKennie playing as like a wide right midfielder who would come inside and also provide width, and Yunus Musa and Tyler Adams and their chemistry together in the midfield. We were the better team by far against England. And we played in a way that gave you real hope that, hey, this group not only is getting on board and playing at a really fast rate, the tempo was magnificent in that match. The only thing we were missing was a goal scorer. We didn't have that.
Weston
Because
had a great chance.
You could
He
go
had a
through,
great
but
chance.
we had all the pieces in line, it felt, except for the goal scorer. And now here we are. There's no identity. There's no style. There's no system that works with this player. So for me, Pochettino is going to come in and go, all right, here's a system of play. This is our identity. This is how I think we can go far in the World Cup. And we can push our limits by playing to our strengths with this system. And this is how we're going to do it. Second one, competition for places. This guy plays. This guy is pushing you. I'm going to make the sub. This guy's going to get his opportunity. Competition for places. And the third one that you could say might be the most important one is accountability. If you don't play, you're not getting called in. Obviously, there's specific cases, but for the most part, if you don't play,
that's what creates the gray area, though.
If you don't play well, you're not getting called in.
That's what creates the gray
area.
There
are levels,
specific places. I mean, yes, if Christian isn't playing for AC Milan, are you gonna not call him in?
That's my point. That's the only.
That's where the precedent gets really tricky. Like, oh, okay, so that guy gets
everyone knows.
Treatment.
Everyone knows. It's the same.
I know
thing
everybody knows.
In Argentina and for Brazil.
I get it.
Neymar, he's playing in Saudi Arabia. He's injured. Guess what? Everybody's like, we need Neymar to win a World Cup. We're going to play for him. Argentina, Messi's in Miami playing in MLS. You think if any other player plays in MLS, they're getting called in to play? No.
Put some respect on Thiago Almada's name.
There's exceptions.
We don't have those players. Yeah, we don't have those players. Our players, for me, Jimmy, and I've said this, and from an hour after we lost to Holland on my radio show, go 2026. We need guys sharp. How do you get guys sharp? You're playing week in and week out. We can't go with a roster of players. Half the players aren't playing. That's got to be a standard for us. If we're the, can you imagine? We're trying to call this group the golden generation for how many years now? So our golden generation, right? And by the way, I'm going to say I don't subscribe to this until you win something, right? That's just me. We're going to say this, and you're going to have guys that don't play their club team. Our golden generation is going to have guys that aren't playing in their club teams week in and week out. Come on, man. It's got to be better than that.
I think what's interesting is the moment that Pochettino or whatever coach says, hey, I really like your game, but you're not playing right now for your club. Hopefully we'll see you at the next camp. When you get off the phone there, you're like, holy I better get it together. I have to. Once that starts to happen consistently across our player pool, you're going to see a much bigger difference in terms of what it means. And I also think that'll help fill in what Tim Ream is saying as well. You're going to take some more pride in wearing the shirt because it's going to mean a lot more to you because you got called in because you have to be performing. Now, when you get left out and then you get called back in, you just approach it different. Because now you realize, hey, this could be my last time with the national team. I'm not going to take this opportunity for granted because I don't know how many more I'm going to get. And then I think it would actually, let's use Gio Reyna as an example. It would allow him to I got to get my club situation figured out, right? There's some more urgency around that. Right now, it just feels so casual. I'll figure it out. It doesn't matter. I still get called in, blah, 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 blah. And yes, I'm jumping to conclusions. That might not be how he is, but that's how it feels and that's how it looks. Anyway, we're going to take our next break and call it what you want. When we come back, we're going to start looking forward to the New Zealand game. A little preview about that. Don't go anywhere. Hey, welcome back to Call What You Want. Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Tony. What's up, Chuck? What do you got?
And I apologize to our producer, Des and Brad, because I have so much emotion. It's tough to control, especially on a podcast like this. But then we have guys like Ivis. A shout out to Ivis. He does all our stats, and he wanted to throw this comment in, and he knows exactly what is going to push my buttons.
Fasten your seatbelts.
He goes,
here we go.
Julian Alvarez wasn't starting for City and still getting starts for Argentina. We're talking about Manchester City, who won the treble. What are we talking about?
Every week.
And he's still playing every game.
He played more last year than Erling Haaland with all of his injuries.
What are we talking about, Ivis? God.
Ivis trying to
have my got a good Ivis.
Julian Alvarez.
Ivis is so good.
You're going to compare Julian Alvarez to somebody on our roster?
He got you.
Jeez.
Got him.
Yeah, he
Got
me,
him.
he got me.
Jeez, Mikey Varas and Ivis. Wow, what a day here on Call It What You Want.
Hey,
Wow.
all I'm
Triggering
saying,
Chuck. We need to get a
we're all on the
Chuck
same
triggering
page here.
T-shirt.
We're all on the same page. Not only does the quality have to get better on the pitch when the U.S. plays, but these guys have to be playing every week. And if that means coming down from the biggest club names in the world because you're not playing, but you're in training, that means transferring. As any other coach would tell you, you got to be playing to get on the national team. And playing at the highest level, you want to play at the highest level, so you go to the best club you can possibly go to where you're still going to play. Go to the best league you can possibly go to where you're still going to play. That doesn't mean going to we have, what, it was 12 Champions League players from the U.S. playing in Champions League. But how many of them were starters and playing every single match in 90 minutes in those matches, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Before a World Cup, like Tony said, every guy has to be playing 90 minutes, playing with their club and being one of the main players for their club so that come World Cup time, you are in a rhythm, you've got the mentality, you're focused, and we're good to go.
Chuck, I love it. All emotion today. Let's go. Okay, so let's bottle that emotion. Nah, you know what? Let's keep it going. Keep stretching it out. But Tony, I'm coming to you. Staying in the power of three. We said the three things that we want to see from Pochettino. What are the three things that you need to see in this game against New Zealand from the U.S.?
Intensity, right? That needs to change from the first game. I need to see more players, and I know we'll go through a lineup here in a little bit, but I expect to see 7 or 8 changes in this one. And then I need to see a different idea of what Mikey Varas, who apparently wants to coach, quote unquote, through this whole thing. And let's see a different idea from you, because the ideas you had against Canada didn't work. And I know it's a different opponent, but my guess is that this is a team, I was looking at it earlier, I think they've got 7 guys from that Olympic team, so they should be fairly familiar with some of these guys. Just give me some new ideas. Give me something that looks a little bit different. Give me an idea, right? Give me something that I can grasp onto when I'm watching this game and go, okay, we're going to attack the wide areas today, and we're going to get balls in the box. Give me an idea that I can hang on to.
I think what we didn't talk about before, and it now plays into this, we thought we were going to see a reaction after we got bounced in the Copa America, right? This was our first game after that. What's the reaction? How are we going to perform? Where's the pride? Let's see all that. And we didn't see it. And I think that doubles down on my disappointment. So now we have to see that reaction against the Kiwis. We have to see it in some form or fashion. And the best way to potentially get a reaction is to start playing guys that want to take that chance and are hungry to prove that they deserve to wear the red, white, and blue. So reaction is number one for me. How about you, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this group get tested. And typically when they've had a bad game or they've been whooped, they typically bounce back. They've been good with that, the mentality. I go back to the Colombia shellacking 5-1, and then they come back and get a draw with Brazil, right? So, and go in World Cup qualifying, same thing. They play on the road. It was a terrible performance. They'd bounce back and they'd win at home, right? And I think we've seen this group do this a lot. So I would expect at the very least, and this is a weak opponent in the international standards, especially at the level we're trying to be and think we're at. This is a team that had a lot of guys, like Tony said, that featured in the Olympics, and that was a poor team. So no disrespect to New Zealand, but not at the level that should be really challenging us. And so I want to see the intensity, and I also want to see players who are given a chance, because I don't care about this whole, got to show it in training. Stop it. Players had their opportunity in the game. They didn't show. Now it's the next guy's turn. It's that simple. Like,
okay, good. Well, that's a nice segue, Chuck. I'm going to take it from there, because I'm going to have a projected starting 11. The starting 11 I would like to see, and then I want your guys' thoughts on who I selected. And to your point, Tony, I made a lot of changes. And I think this is a good opportunity for Pochettino and the staff that's incoming. These feels make-believe at this point, that our make-believe coach, Mauricio Pochettino, and his make-believe assistants are all going to be joining us whenever that's going to get announced. But so my starting 11, I'm going with Diego Cochin in goal. I want to see, why not? Okay. Yeah, I know you brought Matt Turner, you brought in Ethan Horvath, and those guys have a lot of experience, but We know what they can bring to the table. At this point, let's see what other people can bring to the table. So let's give him a cap. Make sure he's really invested in the U.S. I know he can still switch to Portugal and wherever else. Caleb Wiley, let's put him on the left. I thought Chris Loon, to your point, Chuck, what you said earlier, he was solid. There were some moments there I was like, all right, this guy, he's solidifying his status as a backup to Jedi. No problem. Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, 2 new center backs. Let's give it a go.
Played together in clubs, so they know each other well.
Great point. Marlon Fossey, to your point, Tones, didn't get to see a lot of him. Don't know what he's about. Well, let's see what he's about against this Kiwi team.
Well, it can't be any more negative with the ball at his feet. So might as well put him out there.
Joe Scally taking a stray here from Chuck. Aiden Morris, I want him to sit in the 6. I love what he's done so far with Middlesbrough, and I thought when he came on against Canada, you could see some moments there. We're like, all right, let's just give this guy a run out. Luca De La Torre didn't start in the other one. He scored his first international goal. I think we're going to see him starting from the get-go. I don't need to see more of him, but because we don't have as many options in that space, okay. You got Tillman. I agree with you, Chuck. There were some really bright moments from him that I liked. Some good decision-making, some good
best I've ever seen him in a U.S. shirt. So
yeah, so let's see more of
that for what it is.
Yeah, let's build off of that. And then I changed the whole front 3. Christian Pulisic's got a game on Friday against Venezia for Milan. I don't risk him at all. I put Haji right on that side. Ricardo Pepi, I'd roll him up top, and then I'll have Josh Sargent on the right side. And
Sargent,
I know that
Sargent's a 9. He's not a winger.
I know that, but I'm trying to get all 3 of these guys on the field.
He's played there at Norwich, though. He's playing now as a 9, but
his position's a 9.
Yeah,
I get that.
There,
I get that. I'm trying to figure out a way to make that happen. You could potentially move into.
You could go 2 strikers.
Maybe Sargent could come in a little bit more centrally, and they can just kind of rotate as to who's the second striker based on the position of the ball. But what did you guys think? Tones, I'll come to you first. What are you thinking about my starting?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my list. I think the only one that you had in there, and I'm fine with it, is I had Turner in goal, and I didn't have coaching. But you give me coaching on tomorrow night, I'm fine with it. No, look, and any of these guys, look, you brought these guys all in here for a reason, right? And I used Marlon Fossey in the last pod, and we'll use him now. I just don't know enough about him at this level, right? But I'm looking at my list, and I don't think you have anyone different. I did. No, I have the same. I have Pepe underneath Josh Sargent. Yeah, look, I have the same thing. Coaching was the only goalkeeper. But you give me a game, right? Who's he eligible for Spain, and who else? There's just 2, right?
There's one. Yeah, Spain.
Oh, Peru. Thanks. Yeah,
Spain
Peru.
Yeah.
So okay, I don't know how that's going to turn out in the end. Spain. That's a tough haul in Spain right now, and in Peru, don't they have Carlos Coronel? Right? Isn't he Peruvian? Right, the Red Bull goalkeeper. So I don't know. Who knows how that's going to turn out? But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the kid play. I haven't seen anything other than like highlights. So I'm with
roll
him
out. Roll him out.
Yeah.
Roll him out. How about you, Chuck?
Yeah, I think I'd want to see Josh Sargent at the 9. To be fair.
No problem.
And
so will you put Pepe out? Pepe at?
No, I wouldn't even play Pepe. Pepe hasn't played. Pepe's just, you could tell he's just not in good form because he's not match fit, he's not sharp. So for me, I'm not playing him. And De La Torre too. I'm not. Yeah, he scored the goal, but for me,
he hasn't played.
You know, it's the upside there. You're talking about. I'd rather have Christian as a 10 than having De La Torre in the midfield. But
I don't
ultimately,
know
I like
that game.
I like what you did with the back line. I like what you did the back line. I like what you did with Diego coaching. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a universe where we could see Turner get 45 and coaching get 45. Yeah, I mean, you could do some rotating, but I don't know. Just keep coaching the whole goddamn game.
It's New Zealand. We'll play with 2 strikers. Pepe and Sargent, just go. It's New Zealand. You know, like play our game. Play with the intensity. Play our game and
I think
go.
What's interesting too. Yeah, no, I agree with you. You could, in that instance, because Marlon Fossey is a converted winger, right? So he's going to get up and down the line more Serginho-esque like than what we're seeing from Joe Scally. If you wanted to create that lane for him to play into, then you could put a Pepe or Sargent out wide, and I put air quotes up for people who can't see it, in that right wing spot as it's written down on paper, but then you ultimately kind of slide centrally so that Fossey can be our width on the right side. I mean, I think that's a good possibility. And then Caleb Wiley has demonstrated throughout his career that he can get up and down the left. So you could get a little bit more narrow with our 2 strikers. And then Haji Wright, who's also can play a 9, even though he's done really, really well on the left side for Coventry, or even in either one of the wings. you could have him slot a little bit more centrally, try to create numerical advantages in the middle of the field, and then have Wiley and Fossey really get forward. That's exciting. That sounds fun. Let's try that. I don't know. But it gets back to this, Tones.
Well, it's going to be the same old ish that we've seen.
But who are the leaders? I guess that's another part of it too. Like, okay, we're talking about how they play and their technical and tactical acumen, but and the physicality. I think there's going to be a reactions, and if you're going to make a lot of changes, you're going to see a reaction. But you still need somebody out there that's the glue that's really holding all those things together. So I really want to see, Tones. I guess Aiden Morris seems like someone that could step up, and maybe, I don't know how vocal he is, but I think you could see it through his actions.
After the game,
be a leader.
Did you see his comment by chance after the game? The reporter, he's kind of trying to be coy about things, like I'm happy to be here type of thing. And they said, do you think you should get a start the next game? And he didn't really want to answer the question, so the guy kind of rephrased it in a different way. And what should we look forward to from you? And he said, there's a lot more to come. And he had a smile on his face. And I was like, I had Aiden Morris with the youth national teams, and he was a quiet kid who was the workhorse type kid. And I was like, it's nice to see that little bite from him. And maybe that's part of what he's learning now. If you're going to play in the middle of the field, I still think you have to have that in you. You got to have that I can't even say it. But I tell my kids all the time, when you play ball, you have to have a little FU in you. I'm sorry, that's what you got to have. And it's got to come out at some point. And it comes out in different ways for players. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who the leader is of this group if you go that young.
Yeah, and also in terms of presence, right? I think Aiden Morris can provide that in that area of the field, but we need our center backs. And so, Chuck, I'll come to you. Do you think McKenzie or Trusty, there's a big opportunity for them, not only to just be good at them, right, and having a good individual performance, but I'm also looking at how do they organize everybody around them? How do they elevate the game around them?
I think I've gotten a chance to play with both of them. So I've seen them at the very beginning of their professional careers and seen where they are today. Both of them stand, I think, a big chance to improve their stock within the U.S. men's national team. Again, this is against New Zealand, and I see a comment here on the YouTube live from Meg Durr, like, don't look down on New Zealand. Are we in a position to look down on New Zealand? No, but the reality of the situation is New Zealand's not good. So, yeah, we're not playing well, but they're not good. We should this is not a game where you look at what they do and go, oh, we got to be no, play our game. And that's when we're at our best is, okay, we're mindful of what their strengths are, and they have a big striker in Chris Wood, and we've seen him in Nottingham Forest. But at the end of the day, we just played them in a lot of those guys are in the Olympic team. This is a group that just they're hard workers. They typically defend well, but honestly, just play your game. And for me, again, it's just finding the right combination. And McKenzie and Trusty, they're good enough to keep a clean sheet. They're good enough to spray the ball around, and they're good enough to move the line high and play it with a high line and be aggressive. So this is an opportunity for both of them, and I think they could both advance their stock with the U.S. men's national team.
Big opportunity, and of course, we're going to have to wait and see what the starting 11 is from Mikey Varas. All right, we're going to take our last break of Call It What You Want for everybody on the Golasso Network. When we come back, we'll give you our predictions for what we think is going to happen in the U.S.-New Zealand game. Oh, baby. It's prediction time now. Last time around, ahead of the Canada game, all three of us were wrong with our predictions.
Yes, we were wrong.
But our former co-host, Jesse Marsh, was exactly right. He got it 2-1. He said 2-1 Canada. It was 2-1 Canada. We don't have Jesse Marsh here to prop us up to make sure that one of us on the show gets the predictions right. So, Chuck, I'm coming right back to you on this. What's the score going to be, U.S. versus New Zealand? And I guess I want to add this layer of, okay, we win, but there has to be something behind that, right? There has to be some real substance in how we played to get that result, correct? I mean, if we win 1-0 on some fluky set piece, nobody wants to see that. Like, we want to have something more to it.
I think because it's New Zealand and all eyes are on this group because they were so bad against Canada that they win 2-0.
2-0. Nice, complete
2-0.
performance on both sides of the ball, no matter who's on the field. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Because you said before that New Zealand are very hardworking. Well, we just played a very hardworking team against Canada, and we struggled with that, Tones. What's your prediction in this particular game?
Well, New Zealand will be hardworking as well. We saw that in the Olympics.
Right.
It's just they just don't necessarily have the quality that maybe Canada has. But I had 2-0 in my head as well. But I do want to see something that's a little bit more fluid than what we saw. So that's my sort of caveat to this thing. I don't need to see a lucky penalty kick and a free kick goal if it doesn't all come from just us being a fluid in the game. So. Yeah, 2-0. I'll go with that score, but it needs to look a heck of a lot different. And by the way, just as a note, I said Cornell earlier for Paraguay. I was thinking of Pedro Galese, who's the other MLS goalkeeper, is playing down in Orlando when we were talking about coaching. So that's his competition. Yeah, but that's what I'll go. Charlie, unfortunately, I'm going the same thing.
No, there's nothing unfortunate about that. I would take Dos Acero as well. I think we're really going to put him to the sword. I think there's going to be a big.
So it's all three of us, 2-0. Okay.
I got 3-0. I think if we score early at some point, New Zealand's going to have to stretch a little bit. We tag them maybe right after halftime, and then they're going to have to get stretched even more. We get some subs to come on that are really excited to get on the field to have their chance. We make it 3, and I don't want to say it's going to be comfortable. I think we're going to have to demonstrate that we have to play through some type of press, but I think we're going to do it.
I have to throw this out there.
You can't because we have to. We got to leave that for afterwards.
Okay,
because we're done on the Golasso Network. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us.
My bad.
Stay with us though. If you're on the YouTube channel, Golasso America YouTube channel, stay with us. But the Golasso Network, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Stay here.
Come back and join us for our live reaction show on the Golasso America YouTube channel after the U.S. New Zealand game on Tuesday. We'll see you very, very soon. Oh, hey, YouTubers. What's going on? Welcome, Golasso America.
My favorite family
community.
right here.
We're getting into it. This is Q&A time. You got any questions for us in the chat? This is your best time to ask them or to try to trigger Chuck, whatever you like to do.
I've already been triggered twice.
Oh, yeah, no, and it's not even anybody from the chat yet.
Absolutely let loose. I blew I blew all the steam that was in my head. By the way,
are you sure? I don't think
so. Let's just say Mauricio Pochettino and his staff are there. They're announced. They're watching, and New Zealand wins the game. Where are we at? What is going through your mind?
Where say Mauricio Pochettino
is this rock bottom post 2018?
I'm good. That's would that be rock bottom if we lost to New Zealand? Yes, it would be rock bottom. Not rock bottom. Yeah, maybe rock bottom.
Well, I'm saying
maybe rock bottom. Maybe. That's a good question.
Tony, how do you feel?
Tony,
I don't know what rock bottom is because we didn't qualify for a World Cup, so that seems like rock bottom.
Yeah, but post that.
The rocks would be touching your backside. That's for sure. You'd be down there somewhere, man. I don't know exactly where it is, but yeah.
All right. So we got a good question here from Chris Bach. Chris says, if Pochettino gets signed this week and does a press conference, what would be the one question that you'd want to ask him? Big Tones, I'll come to you first.
I think the first question I asked would, where he goes first with this group. Like, what's mission number one for this group, and how does he plan on changing it? And I'm guessing he knows everything he needs to know about this group since the minute this whole negotiation started. So. Yeah, what are his thoughts? I mean, how does he look at this team and how does he look at this team and this roster and how he thinks he can play, right? He's one guy that's been pretty flexible over his career. So it's not been like one single way that he plays and that's it. So we have seen a little bit of that flexibility from him. He's gonna have to be doing some stretching right now with this group.
So, no, I love that question. And I'm curious as to how he's going to answer it. I do want to say, and we haven't brought her up yet, but Emma Hayes, she's a proper coach. And while the U.S. women's national team was working through their own interim situation, and before she got hired, they seemed like they were in purgatory, not really knowing how they wanted to play in their friendlies and lacking some identity, I'd say, on both sides of the ball. Emma Hayes comes in, and you look at her, you're like, that is a proper coach. She's making tough decisions on big players, right? Leaving Alex Morgan off the Olympic team. Now, we now know that maybe there were some other things going on with Alex Morgan with potential pregnancy and where her thoughts were in terms of her career overall. But still, that was a big decision. And then some of the choices she's making on the field as a proper coach. And I think when you see that, and it didn't take her long to turn things around for the U.S. women. They go on to win the gold. Now, do you think that we could see something similar, Chuck? The only difference I would say, well, there's obviously quite a few differences, but we don't have a meaningful competition leading into the 2026 World Cup
until the next one, which is Nations League, and CBS has the rights. Woo!
Okay, that's great. And those are games that I think we can obviously build. But my question, I guess, to Mauricio Pochettino is, do you think you have enough time to implement the system and the style of play that you think you're going to need to have success at the 2026 World Cup? What's your question?
That's a great question. My question would be like, Mauricio, what are the standards and the requirements that you place on these players when it comes to the U.S. men's national team?
Okay. How do you think he'd answer?
Because, you could easily say, it's a case-by-case basis. But ultimately, guys have to be playing, and they have to be playing well. And
he's got to follow through on that.
It's not, exactly. Well, every coach knows you're going to be held accountable on your words. And he's been around for a long enough time, whether it's in the Premier League in Tottenham or PSG, where every word matters, what you say in the media and the press. So he's going to be well aware that whatever he says, people are going to be, glued to that and expect, hey, this is the Bible. You better do as you say. And so for me, it's, okay, what can we expect from him in terms of the call-ups? And for the players who are out there, how do you get called up? What does Mauricio Pochettino want to see for me to get called up? What do I have to do? So to hear that from him, I think would be pretty good.
Okay, I like that. All good questions from us. Hopefully there'll be some journalists in that press conference that are asking similar questions. More questions, though. Speaking of that, we want them from our chat right now. Golasso America YouTube channel. What do you got for us? Call it what you want. Your favorite Average to Good podcast. Izzy says, what makes Sargent good as a number 9, Chuck? And I love that the chat's calling you Chuck now, by the way. I love that.
Yeah. Izzy, appreciate you. And I try to type it in there, but basically what I love about Sargent is, and he's grown, I think, tremendously over the course of his career, but even since he was 17 and I was playing against him, he might've been 16 when I played some preseason friendlies against him with MLS teams. His hold-up play, his understanding of movement as a number 9, the timing of his runs, and then ultimately, as he got older, knowing when to make the right pass, when to make the right run, being I think a little bit more selfish in areas, and he's a good finisher. So, having to play quicker has probably been the one thing that he's had to really work on, because when you're young and you're physically dominant, you don't have to play as quick because you can rely on your strength. And then as he's gotten older, he's realized, okay, I got to be sharper. I got to be quicker. And I thought in the World Cup against Iran, he was phenomenal until he got injured. And then he's had to work his way back up. But it looks like he's finally in good form with Norwich. And I think he's ready for another chance.
Yeah, I think outside just the time he came to the Premier League, that was only the only period where he didn't really score goals, but that team didn't score goals in general, right? But
yeah, they were surviving.
And he was playing in his defensive half of the field for 75, 80 minutes of the game all the time. So, but his entire career, he has scored goals, right, at every level. So let's hope that this continues to translate to the top team.
Yeah, I'm curious. I love you talk about the intricacies and subtleties of his movement, Chuck. I think that's really important in terms of situational and spatial awareness and that recognition of, I can see how things are unfolding. I'm going to go. I'm going to change my speed. I'm going to run off the back shoulder of the center back, or I'm going to find that pocket of space, maybe in front of the back 4 where I can help combine instead. And those, I can see it as well. And I appreciate you bringing up because I think that's really important. Those little details make a big difference. All right. One more question for the best community on the YouTubes. The Call It What You Wanters. We got to come up with a good nickname for everybody. This is for Martin O'Malley. And he says, who is Pochettino going to surprise leave at home? Who is going to be the big name that he leaves at home? I'd say Gio Reyna's the low-hanging fruit there, but maybe somebody else, Big Tones.
Are you thinking like next camp, or are you thinking like the
2026? Wow. Yeah. Good question.
2026.
That's it's hard to say about 2026. There's still, I know we're only 600 and something days, 40 days until the next World Cup, but
I'll throw a name out there.
Okay.
Balogun.
What? Wait. In October, or are you talking not 2026? We're just talking about October.
Just in a front, like
within October
from now till the World Cup.
He's going to leave Balogun at home. Okay.
Because if he's not playing,
explain yourself.
this is, I'll explain myself gladly.
Do it.
So if he's not playing consistently at Monaco and he's not performing well, and we saw in this game, Bombito had him in his back pocket. So in instances like that, you say, I'm going to go with guys who are in his position. This doesn't really help Ricardo Pepi either, but Josh Sargent, Haji Wright, guys who are scoring and playing. And then he goes, you know what? I got to keep Balogun hungry, because this is not you don't come in here and you just start because your name's Balogun and you have a great CV. So for me, he hasn't done what he needs to do. And you could say service and this, but I'm going to pull up some clips tomorrow on Morning Footy and show actually he got the ball in certain places and he lost it. Or he got the ball and he didn't win it, or it was coming to him and he didn't anticipate it. So there are a number of things, but Balogun has not been playing as well as I thought he'd be playing at this stage.
Now, another feather in the cap, I'd say, for hiring someone like Mauricio Pochettino is that he has no obligation to play Balogun or anybody else. Right. He wasn't part of that process. He didn't try to recruit any of these players, dual nationals, to come in. And maybe Greg had a little bit of that, right? Some loyalty to, hey, he worked really hard to convince, let's say Balogun as an example, to come in. Now you feel compelled to have to play him just because you want to match the intensity of that original, let's say, agreement, I guess, to get him to come in. So what about you, though? Tones, who did you say? Did you say you didn't say anybody yet?
No, I haven't. Although I'm listening to Charlie. I'm hoping with Balogun that under Pochettino he fits into whatever Pochettino's trying to do a little bit better than he's fit in under this system, right? So we get a better look at our nine. But I suppose Tim Ream wouldn't be that big of a drop off, right? If he just says, "Look, I'm looking." So let me let's. I'm not going to use him then. How about Matt Turner? That would be
there we go. Yeah. Matt Turner.
That would be one, because he's just not getting any games at all right now. So maybe I'll go there.
Weston McKennie. If I know that Juve brought him back into the fold, which is the second year running for that, but I wonder how much he's actually going to play and have an impact. Maybe you could throw him out there if he's not playing regularly. All right, that's it. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate your support. We are calling it a show for now. Come back and join us on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for our instant recap. The U.S. men's national team and their game against New Zealand and the Kiwis will be live on this channel right now, the Golasso America YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening to this in podcast form, make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. Take a few seconds to leave us a rating. That would be awesome. And then also drop us a comment on this episode on Spotify. And just look below the play, and you can leave comments now, and we'll try to read a few of those in our
this show. Was a great Monday podcast,
It was a great Monday, but and we'll also be live on the Golasso Network again, because they love
tomorrow
us.
Night.
Why would they? Yes. No, wait. Yeah, tomorrow night. The game's tomorrow night. That's right. I know. It's what we do. All
the questions to everybody in the chat. You guys were fire. We appreciate you. Keep asking those questions. And don't forget, tomorrow we're going to bring the heat again.
Heat. Hopefully there's not as much heat to bring because we won, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Later.